Now more of Decision 2013. Live election night results with WOR News Director Joe Bartlett.
Let's go over to New Jersey. Steve Adubato from NJ Politics with us this evening. Steve, good evening. How are you?
Great, Joe. Always good to talk to you. Big night tonight.
Big night, and it was, sort of, this thing was written before we even got here this evening.
Why did we come in?
But I want to ask you your impressions of Christie's speech. He went right to the point. Washington, take a look at me.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that when you get 60% of the vote in a state with over 700,000 more Democrats than you have Republicans. You can do that when you get half of the Hispanic votes as a Republican candidate. You can do that when in a place like Essex County, a hardcore Democratic county, Chris Christie lost in 2009 by 75,000 votes. He cut that margin in half. He didn't win Essex County, but you're not supposed to win it. You're supposed to keep the vote down, and he did. And he's going to go across this country and say, look, I'm about the only Republican in this country running for president who can do these things. And that's what you saw tonight.
Now, and I think there's a concern, too. I mean, Bono brought it up that, he's going to take his eye off New Jersey. I mean, he's going to start running for president now.
Yeah, Joe, it is a practical issue. And Governor Tom Kean, who, people on both sides of the aisle have great respect for, has said several times that he feels that running for president as governor of New Jersey is a lot more challenging than people think. And listen, no disrespect to Texas, but the governor of Texas is not as powerful constitutionally and from a practical point of view as the governor for New Jersey. You just have more responsibility. So Chris Christie is going to have a challenge there as to how to govern and run at the same time.
Would he give it up, do you think?
This is, and Joe knows that I've interviewed the governor a lot of times and gotten into a lot of back and forths with him because, he tells you when he thinks you're, asking him something he doesn't want to answer, and he doesn't answer.
Oh.
But I'll say this. I think I know him relatively well, and every instinct in him is that he does not want to give it up. But there's a practical issue, and that's this. The Securities and Exchange Commission.
There you go. You're right.
Yep. Here's what it is.
Yeah.
I think it's called the G7, whatever it is.
New Jersey's the toughest.
Well, here's the law. The law, I believe, says, the regulation says that if you are governor in a state, in a place that has pension funds like this that are invested, right, by securities firms that are on Wall Street, you can't raise money politically from those firms. Now, how do you run for president without being able to raise that money?
Without Wall Street, right?
Yeah, Wall Street money. So either Christie has figured that out already, or he may step down at some point. And if he does that at some point, Kim Guadagno becomes, as lieutenant governor, the governor. I think Christie has thought this through because he's a very practical, pragmatic guy. But it's going to be complicated and challenging. And anyone who thinks it doesn't understand how powerful the governor of New Jersey is. And in a crisis, let's not kid ourselves. Sandy was painful for so many people and continues to be. But Chris Christie was seen as the kind of leader he is to a large extent because of the way he led during Sandy, And if we have another crisis, that's who we're looking to be in charge is Chris Christie and no one else.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, his heart is into this. His heart is New Jersey. And we were talking about this earlier. And you travel around the country as a guy from New Jersey, and, in certain places you might get a dirty look when you say, I'm from Jersey. How does he carry that around the country?
I would have said a couple of years ago, Joe, that it's real tough. It would be real tough for Christie to sell across this country. But here's the thing. He's had more practice at it than ever. And it seems like people are more enamored with Christie and more curious about him and more interested in him than I thought they'd be. And he seems to have them. Now, over time, it's going to be fascinating to see the way that plays out. But you also have to compare Christie against other people. And I have to tell you, as I look at that Republican field, and I know it's prognosticating from a long way off, I'm not all that impressed. And Christie looks more interesting and engaging than all the rest, and he's going to be able to say this: I got things done in New Jersey with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic Assembly, with Democrats across this state. I had 50-plus Democratic elected officials support my candidacy.
We need somebody who can cross the aisle because we sure as hell don't have that now.
And the exit polls show
No, but he's got to win that. He's got to win that primary
Yeah,
first.
you got to get
Yeah.
there. Yep. All right, Steve, we got to run. I appreciate your time this evening. Great as always. Let's do it again soon.
Great show tonight.
Thank you, Steve.